You think you know Juice? Think again. Behind Tupac's breakout film were secrets wilder than anything on screen, from a chair-throwing audition that changed Hollywood forever to George Lucas wanting Tupac for Star Wars. Fistfights, hidden tragedies, and one missing song that still puzzles fans today. This is the real story they never told you. Because the craziest part of Juice didn't happen on camera. It happened behind it. Tupac's chair-throwing audition sealed the deal. In 1991, Tupac Shakur wasn't even supposed to be in the casting room. The young rapper had only come along to support his friend Money B from Digital Underground, who was auditioning for the upcoming film Juice. Money B was originally reading for the role of Steel, but as he flipped through the script, one character stood out: Bishop. Handing the pages to Tupac, he said, "This dude is just like you. You should come in and read for him." That offhand suggestion would change both Tupac's life and movie history. After Money B's audition ended with a polite rejection, the casting team noticed Tupac waiting nearby and invited him to read. Director Ernest Dickerson was intrigued from the moment Tupac began his first lines. Initially, Tupac read for the role of Q, which would later go to Omar Epps, but Dickerson quickly saw something more in him. He handed Tupac a new set of pages and asked him to try reading for Bishop instead. What happened next became the stuff of Hollywood legend. In the middle of the audition, Tupac didn't just act the scene, he lived it. Fueled by raw intensity, he suddenly hurled a chair across the room. The outburst wasn't scripted or staged. It was pure Tupac, unpredictable, emotional, and magnetic. Producer David Heyman, who would later go on to produce the Harry Potter films, remembered how everyone in the room froze. When the scene ended, Tupac simply walked out, then leaned back through the door with a sly grin and said, "You better give me the part, because I know where y'all live." That mix of fearlessness, charm, and authenticity left no doubt. Ernest Dickerson didn't need another audition. He had just found his Bishop. Omar Epps' mother's Diana Ross moment. Omar Epps was still in high school when he landed the role that would change his life: Q, the ambitious young DJ at the center of Juice. But while Epps was thrilled, his mother wasn't so sure. She worried that her teenage son was chasing a dream too uncertain, and even after he got the part, she urged him to focus on something more practical and stable than acting. Epps, torn between his love for music and his growing interest in film, decided to take a chance on the movie. When Juice premiered, he invited his mother to join him, both excited and nervous to see how she'd react to his first big screen performance. That night would change everything. As they sat in the theater, taking in the energy of the premiere, neither of them realized that just one seat away sat Motown icon Diana Ross. For Epps' mother, the moment was surreal. Watching her son sit among entertainment royalty, surrounded by stars, she suddenly saw his dream in a new light. In that instant, all her doubts faded. She understood that her son wasn't just dabbling in show business, he had become a part of it. Epps would later recall that night as a turning point, saying his mother finally believed in his path and recognized that he was destined for something extraordinary. Ernest Dickerson's tragic personal dedications. If you stay through the end credits of Juice, you'll notice a short but haunting dedication for Janet and Tamu. Most viewers assume those names belong to family members or crew, but the truth behind them is far more tragic. Janet was director Ernest Dickerson's fiancée. Tamu was a young production assistant who had worked tirelessly on the film. Both women were murdered, their deaths transforming what should have been the most triumphant moment of Dickerson's career, his directorial debut, into one of unimaginable grief. The two tragedies occurred during different stages of the film's creation, casting a long shadow over the production. Dickerson, who had built his name as Spike Lee's trusted cinematographer on films like Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X, suddenly found himself trying to balance professional success with personal heartbreak. Tamu's death was especially devastating. She was killed in Brooklyn after Juice had wrapped filming and moved into post-production. Having been part of the small crew that spent 6 grueling weeks shooting in Harlem, her loss hit everyone hard. But for Dickerson, it struck at the heart of the project. By dedicating Juice to both women, Dickerson turned his pain into a permanent tribute. Every time the film plays, their names appear, a quiet, powerful reminder that behind one of the most important urban dramas of the 90s lay 2 real lives, gone too soon. Tupac was almost a Jedi in Star Wars. One of Hollywood's most fascinating what-ifs is the story of Tupac Shakur almost becoming part of the Star Wars universe. Before his death in 1996, Tupac was reportedly being considered for the role of Jedi Master Mace Windu in Star Wars, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. The revelation came from Rick Clifford, a chief engineer at Death Row Records, who remembered a conversation the two had shortly before Tupac's death. Tupac had told him, "Old man, keep your fingers crossed. I've got 3 movies coming up. One of them I've got to read for George Lucas." According to Clifford, Tupac explained that Lucas wanted him to play a Jedi, a role that, just a few years later, would go to Samuel L. Jackson. Tragically, Tupac was killed in September 1996, only months before filming began on The Phantom Menace. The connection is almost eerie. Jackson, who ultimately took on the role of Mace Windu, had shared the screen with Tupac years earlier in Juice. Had fate taken a different turn, audiences might have seen Tupac Shakur wielding a purple lightsaber instead of Samuel L. Jackson, a crossover of hip-hop and sci-fi history that the world never got to witness. Tupac's $15,000 paycheck shopping spree. When Tupac Shakur got paid for his role in Juice, he did what any young star might dream of. He went on a shopping spree. For his breakout performance as Bishop, Tupac earned $15,000, split into 2 checks, one for $9,000 and another for $6,000. For an independent film with a small budget, that was a generous payday for a first-time actor. Casting director Jackie Brown later recalled that there hadn't even been a set salary structure at the time, with most actors earning between $1,000 and $3,000 per week. But Tupac's presence was undeniable. As Brown put it, "You guys want him. He's worth every penny." The moment he cashed those checks, Tupac celebrated the only way he knew how, by buying jewelry. His close friend and personal assistant, Kendrick Wells, remembered seeing him spend nearly the entire sum on what he described as a silver or gold collection. That decision said everything about where Tupac was in life. He wasn't interested in saving or investing. He wanted something he could see, wear, and feel. Something that told the world he'd made it. For a young man who had grown up with so little, that jewelry wasn't just about luxury. It was about identity and validation. In early 90s hip-hop culture, chains and rings were more than fashion. They were proof of success, symbols of survival. For Tupac, his first big purchase didn't just shine, it spoke. The movie poster sparked a gang color controversy. Even before Juice hit theaters, Paramount Pictures found itself caught in a storm of controversy, all because of a movie poster. The original design showed Tupac Shakur holding a gun, shrouded in a bluish haze, with the tagline boldly printed in red: "Power. Respect. Juice. How far will you go to get it?" But the issue wasn't just the weapon. It was the colors. The mix of red and blue instantly drew criticism for echoing the colors of the Bloods and Crips, Los Angeles's most notorious rival gangs. Many accused Paramount of glamorizing gang life rather than condemning it. Community groups like Mothers Against Gangs in Communities, MAGIC, led protests, saying the poster's imagery completely undermined the film's supposed anti-violence message. The backlash became so intense that local TV stations in LA aired the unedited poster on the news while covering the outrage. Facing public pressure, Paramount eventually pulled the design and released a toned-down version. Still, the damage was done. The controversy forced Hollywood to confront a larger question. How do you sell authenticity in urban storytelling without crossing the line into exploitation? Spike Lee's cinematographer's directorial debut. Before Juice, Ernest Dickerson was already a force behind the camera, one of Hollywood's most respected cinematographers. His move into directing wasn't just a personal milestone, it was a turning point in film history. What made this transition so remarkable was his long creative partnership with filmmaker Spike Lee, one of the most groundbreaking voices of his generation. The two met while studying at New York University's film school and quickly formed a bond built on shared vision and artistic ambition. Their first collaboration, Spike Lee's master's thesis film Joe's Bed-Stuy Barbershop We Cut Heads, 1983, won a Student Academy Award and launched both of their careers. Dickerson went on to become Lee's trusted visual architect, shaping the look of 6 of his most iconic films: She's Gotta Have It, 1986, School Days, 1988, Do the Right Thing, 1989, Mo Better Blues, 1990, Jungle Fever, 1991, and Malcolm X, 1992. His mastery of color, light, and movement defined the visual language that became synonymous with Spike Lee's work. In 1990, Dickerson made history as the first African-American member of the American Society of Cinematographers, ASC, breaking barriers in an industry that had long overlooked black artists in technical and creative leadership roles. When he finally stepped into the director's chair for Juice in 1992, it marked both an ending and a beginning, the close of his era as Spike Lee's right hand, and the birth of his own voice as a filmmaker. Fittingly, their final collaboration, Malcolm X, became a film about vision, leadership, and legacy, themes that reflected both men's journeys. For Dickerson, years of guiding actors and framing Lee's powerful stories had been the perfect training ground for what would become his own defining debut. Tupac's mysterious absence from the soundtrack. One of the most puzzling mysteries surrounding Juice is that Tupac Shakur, whose performance as Bishop defined the entire film, was completely left off the official soundtrack. The omission is especially strange considering how successful the Juice soundtrack became. Released in early 1992, it quickly turned into one of the most influential hip-hop compilations of the decade, earning gold certification from the RIAA just weeks after the movie's debut. The lineup was stacked with early 90s hip-hop royalty: Naughty by Nature's Uptown Anthem, Eric B. and Rakim's Juice, Know the Ledge, Big Daddy Kane, Salt and Peppa, and Cypress Hill. The album soared to number 17 on the Billboard 200 and hit number 3 on the R&B/hip-hop chart, proving that if Tupac's music had been included, it could have pushed the album even higher. What makes the decision even more baffling is that Tupac was already an established artist when Juice hit theaters. His debut album, Tupacalypse Now, had been released just 2 months earlier in November 1991, drawing both controversy and critical acclaim. He wasn't a newcomer. He was already making waves. The soundtrack was produced by Hank Shocklee and the Bomb Squad under Shocklee's new SO Records label in partnership with MCA Records, marking his first major feature film soundtrack. To this day, no one has ever officially explained why Tupac was excluded. Fans and music historians have speculated for decades, but the truth remains unknown, making his absence one of the most enduring mysteries in the Juice legacy. A deadly real-life connection to the film. 2 years after Juice hit theaters, the film became linked to a chilling real-life tragedy that highlighted how deeply movies can sometimes influence vulnerable young minds. In 1994, a murder trial in Cardiff, Wales, made international headlines after 3 gang members claimed they were inspired by Juice when they brutally kicked a man to death. The case involved 4 young men from a local gang. During the trial, 3 of them told the court they were directly imitating scenes from Ernest Dickerson's film. Their defense, blaming a movie for their actions, sparked outrage, media frenzy, and a heated debate about the impact of violent films on impressionable youth. All 4 defendants faced serious consequences, though their sentences varied. 3 were convicted of murder under British law, while the 4th was found guilty of manslaughter, suggesting the court believed he played a smaller role in the attack. The case quickly became part of a broader cultural conversation about media influence and youth violence in the 1990s. Urban crime dramas like Juice, once praised for their realism, were suddenly under fire, with critics questioning whether they reflected society's problems or fueled them. The connection between the film and this tragedy was reported by the Times of London on March 23, 1994, forever linking the murder to Juice in both legal and media history. It remains one of the most haunting examples of defendants claiming that a movie directly inspired their crime. The famous two-gun movie mistake. One of the most noticeable continuity errors in Juice occurs during the film's most intense moment, when Bishop shoots his friend Raheem in the abandoned building after their failed robbery. Eagle-eyed viewers have long spotted something odd in that scene. Bishop appears to be holding 2 completely different guns at once. As Raheem confronts him and demands the gun used in the heist, a revolver is clearly visible tucked into Bishop's left pocket. But seconds later, when Bishop pulls out a weapon to fire, it's an entirely different gun, leaving fans puzzled about where the second one came from. Some viewers have theorized that Bishop might have taken the convenience store owner's gun earlier in the movie, but that explanation doesn't add up. The store owner's gun was a long-nosed revolver, and Raheem's was a snub-nose. Neither matches the one Bishop is seen carrying during the confrontation. The confusion grows in the rooftop chase scene, where Bishop somehow fires more than 6 rounds without reloading, a clear impossibility for a revolver. For years, movie buffs have listed this among the most obvious continuity mistakes in Juice, a small prop error that stands out amid one of the film's most powerful and tragic moments. Omar Epps actually learned to DJ. Most actors rely on movie magic, clever camera angles, and hand doubles to make specialized skills look convincing on screen. But Omar Epps wasn't most actors. When preparing to play Q, the aspiring DJ at the center of Juice, Epps decided to go all in. Instead of faking his way through the turntable scenes, he made a bold choice: to actually learn how to DJ before filming even began. It was an unusual move for Hollywood at the time. Most productions would have simply used close-ups of a professional's hands, cutting between shots to create the illusion of skill. But Epps understood that Q's passion for music wasn't just a character detail, it was the heart of the story. He wanted audiences to believe in Q's dream, and that meant doing the real work. So he learned the art of spinning records, controlling the crossfader, and mastering the rhythm that defined hip-hop's early DJ culture. The dedication paid off. Every scene of Epps behind the turntables feels authentic. The timing, the confidence, and the precision all reflect someone who truly knows the craft. For hip-hop fans, that authenticity mattered. They could instantly tell the difference between someone pretending to DJ and someone who actually understood the music. By putting in the work, Omar Epps didn't just play a DJ, he became one. And in doing so, he gave Q's story a level of realism and heart that still resonates decades later. A high school prank that turned physical. The cast of Juice may have played close friends on screen, but behind the scenes, things weren't always as easygoing, especially when a joke went too far. Jermaine Hopkins, who played Steele, once decided to prank his co-star Tupac Shakur during filming. He thought it would be harmless fun, a quick laugh between friends. But the joke backfired in a way no one saw coming. Hopkins later explained that Tupac had a habit of stepping off set during production, sometimes to cool off from the emotional intensity of playing Bishop, other times just to clear his head. It became noticeable enough that Hopkins decided to tease him about it. So one day he told Tupac that he'd been fired from the movie. He expected Tupac to laugh, maybe panic for a second, then realize it was just a prank. But that's not how it went. When Tupac learned it wasn't true, he didn't find it funny. Not at all. He took it personally. What started as a joke quickly escalated into a physical confrontation that stunned everyone on set. It was a moment that revealed something deeper about Tupac's mindset at the time. Even early in his career, he was fiercely protective of his work and his opportunities. For someone trying to prove himself as both a rapper and an actor, being told he'd lost his breakout role, even as a joke, hit a nerve. The film's incredibly profitable budget ratio. While Hollywood's biggest blockbusters often dominate headlines, Juice quietly became one of the most remarkable financial success stories of the early 1990s. Made on a modest budget of just $4 to $5 million, the film went on to earn $20.1 million worldwide, an extraordinary return that made it one of the most profitable movies of 1992. That success didn't come from flashy effects or big-name stars. It came from smart budgeting, sharp marketing, and the raw, breakout performances of a young, mostly unknown cast. Originally, Island World Productions struggled to find financing. But after the success of other urban dramas like New Jack City and Boys and the Hood, studios began paying attention to the growing demand for authentic black storytelling. Once Juice was finished, a bidding war erupted among major studios. Paramount Pictures won the distribution rights by promising a $10 million marketing budget, twice the cost of making the film. The gamble paid off. When Juice opened over Martin Luther King Jr. weekend in January 1992, it pulled in $8 million in just 3 days, a stunning debut that proved audiences were ready for stories grounded in realism and cultural truth. By year's end, Juice ranked as the 6th most profitable film of 1992. More than just a hit, it became a cultural milestone, proof that films led by black actors, made with authenticity and purpose, could deliver both critical acclaim and box office gold. Its success paved the way for a new wave of urban dramas throughout the decade, showing that sometimes the smallest budgets can create the biggest impact. The film's specific Harlem street locations. Unlike many movies that rely on studio sets or generic city backdrops, Juice was filmed entirely on location, in the real streets of Harlem, New York. Director Ernest Dickerson made that choice intentionally. He wanted the film to look and feel authentic, to capture Harlem as it truly was in the early 1990s. The result was a raw, almost documentary-like realism that grounded every scene in truth. The production used A. Philip Randolph High School, located at 443 West 135th Street, as the school attended by Q, Bishop, Raheem, and Steele. By shooting in an actual working high school, the actors performed in real classrooms and hallways, surrounded by the everyday life and energy of the community. Several Harlem street corners also became iconic parts of the film's identity. St. Nicholas Terrace and 135th Street served as the spot where the crew waits for Steele when he's running late. Convent Avenue and West 129th Street were used for Bishop's tense second confrontation with Radams and his gang. And 416 West 129th Street became the backdrop for the scene where Red's gang chases off a passerby while Bishop watches from nearby. The 6-week shoot, which began on March 13, 1991, took place entirely in real Harlem neighborhoods. That meant the cast and crew weren't just recreating the world of their characters. They were living in it. Tupac demanded to stay in character on set. Tupac Shakur's approach to playing Bishop went far beyond traditional acting. He became the character. From the moment filming began, he refused to break role, insisting that everyone on set call him Bishop, even when the cameras weren't rolling. He believed that staying in character was the only way to capture Bishop's raw emotion and unpredictable energy. For a first-time film actor, this level of method acting was almost unheard of. While most newcomers focused on remembering lines or hitting their marks, Tupac was exploring the deep psychology of his character, the pain, paranoia, and rage that drove him. He carried that intensity through every moment on set, The cast and crew adjusted to his unusual process, addressing him as Bishop during lunch, rehearsals, and even offhand conversations. It created a strange but powerful atmosphere, one where no one was entirely sure when Tupac ended and Bishop began. For his co-star Omar Epps, this immersion made their dynamic electric. The tension between Q and Bishop on screen felt real, because in many ways it was. Tupac's total commitment blurred the line between performance and reality, forcing everyone around him to react authentically. Studios wanted it as a comedy. When writers Ernest Dickerson and Gerard Brown first began pitching Juice around Hollywood in the mid-1980s, studio executives completely misunderstood what the film was meant to be. Instead of recognizing the story as a serious psychological drama and social commentary, executives kept suggesting that they lighten it up, even turning it into a comedy. It wasn't just one misguided opinion either. Multiple studios made the same tone-deaf suggestion, missing the point entirely. The script explored dark, weighty themes: police harassment, gang violence, the struggles of urban youth, and the gradual moral decay of a young man consumed by power. But somehow, Hollywood decision-makers looked at this and thought it would work better with jokes. At one point, the script was even optioned by the Donner's Company, which seriously considered transforming Juice into a comedy. Their plan would have turned Bishop's chilling descent into violence into a lighthearted misadventure, a far cry from the raw, unsettling story the writers had envisioned. This disconnect revealed how little Hollywood understood black urban life at the time. In the 1980s, most studios had no idea how to market serious films about inner-city struggles. Their default solution was to soften the edges with humor, to make the realities of these communities safer for mainstream audiences. It took years, and the success of groundbreaking films like New Jack City and Boys and the Hood, for studios to finally realize that audiences didn't want watered-down stories. They wanted authenticity. And because of that cultural shift, Juice was finally allowed to be made the way Dickerson and Brown had always intended, as a raw, powerful, and unflinching portrait of ambition, violence, and survival in urban America. The script sat on a shelf for 9 years. The screenplay for Juice was actually finished way back in 1984, nearly a decade before it ever made it to the big screen. Ernest Dickerson and Gerard Brown had crafted what they believed was a powerful, honest story about friendship, violence, and survival in the inner city. But at the time, Hollywood wasn't ready for it. Studio after studio rejected the project. Executives called it too dark, too violent, and too real. They insisted that audiences wouldn't be interested in such a raw look at black urban life. Some even suggested rewriting it entirely or turning it into something lighter. Even Dickerson's own agent told him flat out the film would never get made as written. So the script sat untouched for years, collecting dust while Dickerson built an impressive career as a cinematographer, working on Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X. Ironically, as he was shooting those films, the same social issues that Juice explored, violence, poverty, disillusionment, were only growing worse in real life. Yet Hollywood still refused to see its relevance. Everything changed in 1991. John Singleton's Boys in the Hood became a surprise box office and critical success, proving that audiences were ready for authentic stories about life in America's inner cities. Practically overnight, Hollywood's attitude shifted. Gerard Brown's new agent rediscovered the Juice script and was stunned that it had never been made. Within weeks, studios that once dismissed it were suddenly competing for the rights. A bidding war broke out, and the same screenplay that had been shelved for 9 long years was now exactly what Hollywood wanted. What had once been too real had finally become the truth the world was ready to see. In the end, Juice wasn't just another movie from the early 90s. It was a revolution in storytelling. It captured the raw energy, danger, and emotion of a generation that Hollywood had ignored for too long. Behind every frame was a battle, to be heard, to be seen, and to tell the truth. And more than 3 decades later, it still hits just as hard. But what do you think? Was Juice ahead of its time? Or did Hollywood only embrace it once it saw profit in the pain it portrayed? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more untold stories about Juice, 1992, and the cast who revealed what most fans never figured out: